All right, let's begin. Hello, welcome to our webinar titled Defining and Measuring Your Change Management Strategy for a Successful Workday Deployment. My name is Michael Marino and I'm a director in our advisory services organization. I work for Collaborative Solutions, which is the longest tenured Workday deployment partner. We are also a finance and HR transformation consultancy with over 800 customers in 125 countries. Our strategy and change management offerings guide our customers during their pre-planning activities, throughout their implementations, and beyond go live. Our customers range from private sector, many of which are Fortune 50 companies, to government, higher ed, and non-for-profit entities. On this slide, you will see the many Workday awards, the many workplace awards that we've received, as well as our 98% customer satisfaction rating, something that we are very, very proud of. Joining me today are David Brailsford and Dina Costas, who are members of our organizational change and training practice. Here is our agenda for today. I will start by discussing the importance of designing the change, crafting a strategy map, and a governance model.
Hi, this is Dave. I will follow with a real-life success story where I will address shaping the path.
And this is Dino. I will close with information regarding measuring adoption. And at the end of the presentation, Claudia Lopes from our marketing team will coordinate the question and answers portion of the session.
As a project stakeholder, you want to maximize the potential of your Workday deployment. To do this, you need to optimize adoption and truly transform your business. And you want to do this with little to no risk. Our experience at Collaborative Solutions has proved that successful customers more easily deliver digital transformation when they do three things. One, agree on a strategic vision up front. Two, plot a path to ensure that they achieve that vision. And three, measure their objectives to quantify the success. Following these three steps will help you achieve your project's potential and prove its value. In this webinar, we will bring the three-step transformation to light and show you what good looks like. We'll explain how to apply a project direction that defines guiding principles and measurable outcomes. Script the critical moves and engage key stakeholder groups, and evaluate adoption by applying cutting-edge analytics. These objectives are key to achieving your return on investment for your rapid deployment projects. Let's begin by designing the change. With any journey, you and your passengers want to know where they are going and why, and what they have to do to get ready. And first, let's be honest, we're not going to Disney World this summer.
The French Riviera?
No, we are implementing Workday. It'll be fun, you'll see.
But why? What do we hope to achieve?
Will there be pitch and putt?
I'm not sure what that is, but no. To get everyone in the station wagon and on the same page, we need to set goals and metrics.
Mom, Dad, how many Volkswagen Beetles am I expected to count along the way?
Does a Passat count? Who gets to decide?
All good questions. And Dave, stop hitting your brother.
He started it.
Over the years, we have found many customers start a Workday implementation without clearly defined business goals, nor do they know how to empower their project teams to make decisions. Sure, everyone wants a modern, consolidated system, more efficient processes, but how will they achieve success? And more importantly, what efficiencies do they hope to achieve? To address this gap and to better manage expectations, Collaborative Solutions has developed a leadership alignment offering to define a project vision and set objectives and measurements for success. This is achieved during a strategy map workshop, which involves your executive sponsor, HR and finance executives, as well as your technology leadership. Directors and above in your key business areas should also participate in these sessions. Later, I will talk about a project governance model, which will drive the vision captured in the strategy map and provide a framework for making strategic, functional, and technical decisions. With this structure in place, you can improve project responsiveness by fostering collaboration and reducing bottlenecks. Strategy is a plan or an approach to achieve a future state and shared objectives. A strategy map defines the vision and purpose, creates alignment, explains the direction, and sets priorities. Here is a sample strategy map. The purpose is to align decisions to support the future state and to agree why the organization is committed to the journey. By partnering with your executive teams during our Phase 0 workshops, we define guiding principles and common goals. What do you want to achieve? And how will you know that you are successful? Buy-in is critical. A corporate strategic vision could be aspirational, but what does this statement actually mean to your employees and to your managers? You need to answer this question not only for your workforce, but for your external stakeholders, such as your suppliers, customers, and even job candidates. This is especially true if you're engaged in a transformative project for your procurement and revenue management, or if you're changing your talent management organizational and how they interact with technology. Each stakeholder must be considered in order to facilitate adoption and ownership of the change. Now that you have outlined the purpose for each persona, you need to define how to measure success. You must quantify the efficiencies and the targets you want your organization to achieve. Like they say, if you're not keeping score, it's only practice and you're not playing for real. To quantify outcomes and metrics, first you must capture your current processing baselines. Then you need to measure performance and adoption after go live, 3 months later, 6 months later, etc., to identify improvements and trends. Your goal is to change behavior and transform how your company or university conducts its business operations and consumes information. Based on your assessments, take corrective action as needed. Later in this presentation, my colleague Dina will discuss how to measure your adoption and performance targets. Now that we have identified a strategy map, next, we need a governance model to commit the organization to the vision and provide a framework to manage that vision. What does a governance model hope to achieve? It defines the process and provides the mechanism for decision-making. It promotes ownership and transparency. It also forces you to realize if you have allocated the appropriate resources to make those decisions. Another key component of an effective governance model is communication. You must relay important messages and decisions to your stakeholders inside and outside of the project. You must manage how the project is performing and report your successes and setbacks. Lastly, you must be clear about roles and levels of authority. Empower your decision makers to make decisions. Define who is responsible and accountable. For Workday, HCM, finance, and student implementations, governance plays a critical role. It is foundational to both implementation and production. It is not merely procedural. Governance guides the transformation. It guides decision-making for people, process, and technology. Conversely, misaligned or ineffective governance can give rise to inconsistency, confusion, and conflicting priorities, which may put your implementation at risk. And remember that beautiful strategy map we designed with guiding principles and goals? It will quickly become an academic exercise and will soon be forgotten. A strong governance model, however, can be a catalyst for your transformation as it aligns action with vision, promotes change, and guides the journey. By designing and communicating a strategy map, everyone knows where we are headed, understands why, and how the initiative will be benefit to the organization. With a governance model, you are choosing leaders to drive and influence success. Remember, you are not just implementing a new system, you are changing how people approach and think about their work. A poorly defined vision puts your project at risk, especially if stakeholders are not on board and decisions are constantly being revisited. Challenges will arise in your journey, and there are strategies to address them. Let me bring back Dave Brailsford, who will tell you about a recent project and how he helped his customer define the path and advance the case for change.
Are we there yet?
Not yet, Dino. We are simply pulling over to take a look at the strategy map. In this part of the webinar, I will explain how key savvy change techniques were applied for a rapid change approach. We will apply this using a real-life customer success study for a launch project, demonstrating how change was successfully achieved through scripting the critical moves with a change plan and clarity management, empowering and engaging key stakeholders. This section is all about laying and walking the path to success. One of the most common questions I get asked by customers initiating project change management is, where do I start? There is a mass of material, templates, ideas, and intellectual property and ways of doing things at Collaborative Solutions. And we, as partners with our customers, must decide and agree the essential items that will achieve success within the parameters of the project timeframe. Strategy, as discussed previously, helps us define a clear vision, purpose, and governance. This is, in effect, capturing and bringing to life the why this project question by defining customers' project success up front. However, for some projects, this simply may not be the time to deliver a comprehensive strategy. For example, Launch has a very quick but fantastic deployment approach designed primarily but not exclusively for mid-enterprise customers who prefer a more prescriptive out-of-the-box solution. At Collaborative, we have an accelerate deployment methodology that meets the exact needs of rapid deployments, such as Launch. The success study we bring to you today is one of true collaboration and partnership with Genius Sports Group. Genius Sports Group is one of the world's largest sports technology companies, specializing in the capture, distribution and commercialization of live data, streams and digital content. It works in partnership with the biggest names in sports, betting and media to power a global ecosystem that benefits every stakeholder. We partner with some fantastic individuals at Genius Sports Group, including an incredible change lead who knew the organization from top to toe and a communications lead who conveyed key messages with incredible aptitude to every organizational level. The project itself was a quick to deploy launch. for HCM and associated functions. There was an abundance of change activities, both collaborative and Genius delivered, to make this project phase a huge success. However, a few key objectives was to initially organize the team with a plan, get stakeholders engaged, targeting key influencers to becoming ambassadors, and of course, deliver this rapidly to achieve successful change. So how did we achieve change success? First was to script the critical moves. In effect, create an easy to understand and visual plan that showed who needs to do what and by when. This really helped organize the team into their roles and cleared a path to success. In addition, naturally, we knew that future users and stakeholders are normally ambivalent to the concept of new projects deployments in their organization. So we wanted to implement an engagement action plan, what's known as clarity management. And this is a proactive activity specifically designed to prevent resistance from stakeholders and in fact, turn any ambivalence or resistance into ambassadorship for the project. We engage key stakeholders, proactively providing crystal clear project guidance, where to go to support, and more crucially, let them know what's in it for them. And two of the key softer parts of the work was just keeping positive throughout and having regular touch points, which really did enforce a special open relationship and working compatibility that simply made the project change implementation infallible. Now, what do we mean by scripting the critical moves? This means completing the activities to get to where we need to achieve success in the time frame provided. In this instance, time and resources were limited, so we focused on the key activities that got us to our desired destination. This slide shows us a summarized view of these critical moves, the change deliverables plus their objectives in the order of how they were executed. First up is the stakeholder matrix, which successfully documented all key audiences and stakeholders across Genius Sports Group and assessed the stakeholders that may be resistant and would benefit from engagement early on. That led to the creation of a resistance plan, which was a set of actions designed to engage key stakeholders into the project. Then finally, that was action through clarity management, which was the execution of the actions created in the plan. This engaged and proactively overcame resistance and project ambivalence. The stakeholder analysis was also used as an entry point into the creation of a change champion network that successfully engaged and connected influential and impacted stakeholders with the goings-on of the project. The change champion network acts as an extension to the project team. The change impacts and benefits is the core of any change program, and that provided the evidence to demonstrate the nature and the breadth of change, which in turn helped develop the training need for audiences, plus the key messages for communications. In addition, the change impacts also helped us show the benefits per stakeholder group, and that was used to incentivize stakeholders into the project as part of the clarity management activity. Of course, the underlying change plan was much more detailed than what you can just see here. However, what we focused on were the key activities that drove most of the change. We did, in fact, script the critical moves to achieve successful engagement, communications, and training. In summary, the change plan successfully shrunk the magnitude of change into manageable, easy to understand set of actions. Moreover, the team became motivated after the successful completion of each action, and deliverables, and the positive feelings and quick wins motivated the team further, which ultimately drove a successful change deployment. Another key change technique discussed previously was clarity management. And this activity works on the premise of engagement. We know often the resistance or project ambivalence is the result of a lack of clarity. Therefore, the key here is to provide clarity to all key stakeholders to help them understand how the project would benefit them and what it was looking to achieve. The benefits, as discussed previously, would be derived directly as outputs from the change impact assessment. And in most instances, stakeholders fully understanding both the benefits and the project's objectives over time will convert opponents into ambassadors. And moreover, and this is important here, if the stakeholders are influential within the organization, then other stakeholders will follow their lead. And the positive messaging will become contagious and they will follow. How did we successfully implement clarity management at Genius Sports Group? Well, we started with assessing key stakeholders across the organization. We felt that there were key influential individuals that would benefit from clarity about the project, and we understood how the project would benefit them through the change impact assessments. We brainstormed an action plan targeting to engage each of these stakeholders. And then the action plan was managed to fruition. And each stakeholder was engaged, comfortable with the change, and ready for go live. This action to proactively overcome ambivalence and potential resistance with a relatively small but now engaged and influential population had incredible reputational benefit for the project through positive messaging multiplying throughout Genius Sports Group. In summary, key influential stakeholders were successfully engaged and became part of the extended project network. The engagement and information supplied provided crystal clear clarity, showing the vision of the project. The culmination of these actions resulted in a positive Workday vibe and made the overall landing of change very successful. In our earlier section, we discussed the importance of defining your vision at the start of a project. In our next section, Dina Costas will discuss creative ways to measure the success of that vision, proving the aspirations, goals, and desires set forth in your strategy map.
By my count, I have 492. What's your score, Dave?
Well, we were keeping score.
Do try to pay attention. Michael and David have discussed our strategy and change management of our activities. The key task now is to prove that we've achieved the success defined earlier at pre-go live, go live, and post-go live. We'll start by having a look at some of the tools we have at our disposal that can help measure this success. And these are broken out into two buckets: adoption and usage, and experience and satisfaction. If we think back to our strategy map, fostering self-efficiency, increased adoption of self-service, and favourable employee satisfaction surveys were all some of our goals. And Workday usage metrics and digital adoption platforms allow us to measure whether the end user is actually initiating and completing a task within the timeframes that we set out. So it's really key to use these performance indicators as part of our measurements. And as we'll see shortly, the data provided may tell us that one of our solutions isn't actually having the desired impact. For example, it may show that on average, it's taking the user too much time to create a job requisition. But what's so vital here is that we now have the ability to intervene and make the correct decisions to bridge any gaps. If we move over to the experience and satisfaction measurements, we're really focusing on the employee's user experience. And we can get that information on how they feel from surveys, feedback, and that change champion network that David put into place to help mitigate resistance. And that's why it's so important that this network is still operating in post-production to continue to engage with people and ask questions such as, how are things going? Where are the challenges? And having these types of mechanisms allow us to interact and witness the behavior right in front of us. And again, this is where we can come in and feed in maybe some additional communications to provide the user what they really need at that point in time. This is where the project team would review the goals from the strategy map sessions. And they'd ask questions such as, have the metrics been achieved and how are they trending? Are transactions been improved in Workday, but later requiring manual journals to correct these entries? And if so, we need to examine the manager training. Additional questions could include, do your managers know what to look for when approving transactions? And if you're not meeting your performance targets, corrective action is definitely required. And there could be a number of reasons for these. Perhaps communications were inadequate prior to go live, or maybe there are gaps in training or in managers' understandings of their roles and responsibilities in the process. Let's now look at how the Workday usage metrics and related reports, which are great at providing an overview of adoption and can help you understand the application functionality in use, the depth, breadth, and processing volumes of the production tenant, and areas for education, enhancement, and deployment. So these can be turned on and emailed to key project team members. If we now think back to our strategy map created during phase 0, one of our goals was to encourage the use of mobile to provide information anywhere. And you can see in the red box on the left-hand side, adoption metrics can show month-on-month logon sessions via mobile quickly and easily. These really do provide a great starting point. And if anyone wants to start utilizing them, you just need to speak with your engagement managers about this. The next tool we'll look at is Adopt, and this really helps to tell the story behind these numbers. And AppLearn's Adopt tool really does this by providing an enhanced user experience as well as adoption metrics. And we really feel that our partnership with AppLearn will ensure that our customers are kept at the forefront of digital transformation. And this is because the purpose of Adopt is to simplify the user experience by providing them with point-of-need support and helping the business demonstrate that it's actually achieving its desired outcomes from the investments in Workday and realizing its return on investment through real-time analytics. Also, Adopt is a tool that goes beyond just Workday and can be used to unify your various cloud-based platforms to give the user that consistent experience throughout the organization that we touched on earlier in our strategy discussion. Let's have a look now at how the Adopt features really help us to achieve the goals that we set out in our strategy map. We stated that fostering self-efficiency, giving users that platform which encourages widespread adoption, as well as other goals displayed here on screen, were vital to the success of our project. And these all feed directly into the different features here. Smart pages are essentially pop-up end-user communications, which are used to really generate awareness about the change. Split screens help facilitate adoption by scripting the critical moves by providing in-application on-demand support, such as user guides, policy information, or videos. Training pages are really a cloud-based repository, which provide users with access to training materials both at pre and post go live. And Trails provide in-application step-by-step guidance, which help reduce errors, increase user satisfaction, and ensure data accuracy and efficiency. So these fantastic enhances to the user experience really provide the user with what they need to be successful, whilst giving them the incentive to want to come back into Workday. And this results in a mitigation of any data accuracy issues, and at the same time results in a reduction in the number of queries to HR and finance teams. And these all feed into the Adopt analytics, which we really feel makes Adopt so great and allows us to prove what the strategy map is trying to demonstrate. And what's also great about Adopt is that we can use all of these features, including the analytics ahead of go live, for key activities such as testing and user experience sessions to really test the change management approach as it's progressing through the project. Adopt analytics come in at this point and show us the how and enable us to analyze consumption trends and identify where and why each of your audiences are using Workday. We can see whether employees are actually adopting self-service. For example, we can see how many employees have come in and entered their expenses and whether these were entered within the organization's timeframe policy. And not only can we see when they submitted them, we can also see how far they got and the actual point where they stopped using the in-system guidance. So this is really providing us with not just information, but actual relevant information, which gives us the ability to take action. Let's say that the data tells us that the in-system guidance isn't actually designed very well, and maybe the communications within need to be altered so the task can be completed successfully. And this is where the analytics become really powerful. And this is how you're able to intervene and make the correct decisions to bridge any gaps. But also, as we mentioned earlier, Adopt can link up various cloud-based technology platforms. So for instance, we could tie in the analytics with a ticketing system so that we can see what ticket came in, from which user, and then tie this into mitigation strategies in Workday. Therefore, Adopt Analytics enable you to report to leadership to show how a new solution has worked, and that you've actually got real-time data to show how the investment in Workday has been a success, as it's actually been used in the correct way by the people, who are the most important parts in any organization. We've talked about establishing a vision and objectives through strategy, charting a path through change management, and defining ways to measure success. The three of these combined will ensure a project truly meets the desired transformation potential, and the success can be proven with real-time data. Okay, it's now time for some questions, so I'll hand it over to Claudia Lopes, our head of EMEA marketing, who's been busy capturing the questions as they've been coming in.
Hello. So we got a couple of questions here on hand. First question, could we use the strategy map business objectives to address the financial goals set in our business case?
Hi, yeah, sure. This is Michael. The goals and your measures that you define in your strategy map obviously should align with your business case wherever possible. They can also help you realize cost reductions or process improvements, and those will be backed up with the data points that Dina just pointed out. The Workday adoption metrics and tools like Adopt could demonstrate those goals and prove your business case. So I encourage you to come up with some bold targets and drive them and achieve them incrementally. So as you see the trends happening, you can adjust and aim higher. So yeah, make sure your strategy map is aligned with your business case and why you're doing Workday.
Second question. So what is the cost of Adopt? Is it an add-on service that is included in your implementation price?
Hi, this is Dino. I can take that one. So yes, it's Adopt is an additional cost that is negotiable with AppLearn based on the customer-specific needs and wants. We really do see it as a great complement to what the Collaborative already do together with our customers in terms of change management. For example, we'd already worked together to build a training needs assessment, so we know which audiences require which communications or the level of training or in-system guidance. And then we just build on this to identify where we'd enable the various Adopt features. So it really is a very smooth transition from what we'd ordinarily do, where we'd create a user guide or a job aid. But with Adopt, we now insert the user guide at a precise point in time where the customer requires it within the Workday system, instead of them having to search around in SharePoint or any other repository. And this is absolutely key to the user experience and data accuracy.
Okay, next question. Is this presentation going to be available? So I guess I can take this one. Yes, we will be sharing the recording with the follow-up email tomorrow. So next, our project doesn't have a phase 0, but we do have a vision statement and have defined our project team. Do we really need a strategy map?
Of course you do. Yeah, this is Michael. You may not have a phase 0 plan. I mean, what that is just pre-planning. Sometimes it can be a couple of weeks, sometimes it can be 6 weeks, depending on what questions and things you want to address during that phase. But you definitely have to answer some very basic questions. And you can use that time, put together, build out your charter, what you're hoping to measure in your goals. So I think some of those things need to be addressed. You did mention that you have a vision statement. That is a good start. You need to build on that because you need to build a case for change for all of your stakeholders. So You may run into somebody in the elevators and they may tell you, hey, I heard about this Workday implementation. I work in accounts payable. What is this going to do to me? Why should I care? And you got to be ready. You have to have a pitch and tell them exactly what Workday is going to do. So that's why I think that exercise in your strategy mapping, coming up with those value statements for all the people who are going to be impacted by the change. So take some time and craft those messages. Regarding your team, they must understand their roles, sure. They need to understand that they should be empowered to make decisions and what their responsibilities are. So if you don't have that governance model in place, people are going to be reluctant to make a decision because they're going to have to escalate it upstairs to somebody. And you really shouldn't be using your steering committee to go over things like design decisions. That group should be just used to escalate matters that can't be resolved by your project team and your business leaders. They should focus the strategy, your steering committee should focus more on the policy or change in scope, or if there's any budgetary concerns. So get a governance model to create that sort of framework to make decisions and keep you on track.
Okay, next question. Can we see the adopt tool in action?
Yep, this is Dina. Absolutely, that's something we can definitely arrange. We can set some time up to find out a bit more about your needs, whether that's user adoption challenges maybe, and we can work together to see how we can assist you with the adopt tool to overcome these challenges. So I should also point out actually that if anyone else on the call is keen for an adopt demonstration, please reach out to your Collaborative Solutions client partner or via the contact form on our website and we can set that up.
Our users are comfortable with our current systems and we are aware of the inefficiencies, but we managed to get the job done. How can you help us build a case for change when things are working and our users are highly skilled in running their operational areas?
Okay, I'll take that one. That sounds changing. This is Dave here. Okay, it's quite a common question actually. You know, obviously you have users in normal aligned or using their existing kind of BAU processes and they're used to their kind of standard ways of working. Obviously in this particular instance, which is, it's a good question that you kind of mentioned inefficiencies, you're obviously doing things well, the system's working well, but you're going to come in with this new future solution almost. I guess the good thing is to try and look at where it's changing for the good and make that relate to the users that you think might be resistant of that change, and kind of try and shift and tilt the mind shift, and that takes a bit of time. It takes time to change people's minds, but the key thing is to change impacts to really try and help to tease out where the benefits are as for an individual. So for example, if you're someone working in finance and you're going to Workday Finance and looking at how that's going to actually improve their day-to-day operations, should be teased out of your change impact assessments, and then giving that to them and delivering that information to them can kind of incentivize them and make them believe that this is right for them. So it is really about looking at addressing how the benefits are specifically for the user groups, and and focusing on that, and anything adverse like any manual workarounds as well versus the kind of 2B which might be partially automated. So yeah, I think that helps answer that question.
Do you have any comments on how this exercise might be different in the higher education industry?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly which exercise. I'll presume that we're talking about the strategy map. So yes, the higher ed organizations have metrics that they want to look at to make sure that they're performing. So we should take those into consideration. We have collected a lot of different metrics and things that we have done these strategy map exercises with, so we can look at some of these benchmarks and numbers with you and talk to you about what targets you're trying to achieve. The whole value proposition, I think that's very important. I was on a couple of higher ed projects, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you that the medical school has different needs than the fine arts school, and everybody needs a change champion ambassador, and we need to explain what the project's about. So you can't treat all your different organizations the same. You're going to have to engage them and communicate with them, and hear their concerns and build that into your change management activities and your messaging, and listen to them, engage them, and bring them in. So that's true with any organization. There are other things you can do, I think, particularly with the use of those usage metrics and your things like Adopt, to find out where users are, how they're using the system. Are they using mobile? Are they using it at their desk? How long is it taking? So that would be true for any organization, to understand, where are they going for assistance? And I think every user wants to feel confident, and something like an inline tool like an Adopt to guide them through the steps of some of those pages, that's something they may not be doing all the time, like period activity pay. You might want to have that information there whenever they set those types of transactions up. So I think that could be very helpful, rather than looking for a job aid that may be in some SharePoint site, or maybe they printed it out when they were trained 6 months ago when the system went live. So yeah, I think there's different needs. I think every organization needs to have that conversation and look to put together a training needs assessment based on who the stakeholders are and where they are in the journey, and create a program that's going to help those organizations meet their unique challenges.
For organizations experiencing resistance, what advice do you have?
Okay, I think that kind of aligns to what we were discussing earlier about a good, clear resistance management strategy. Naturally, it's difficult, in any organization to overcome resistance. We know this, but there's always, with project deployments, there's always a benefit at a kind of user level, whether that's someone that's just a ad hoc user of loading, managing the HR bits and components. There might be the user that's going to be operating different financial modules on an almost daily basis. It's really getting into the understanding of how we can overcome that resistance for that user. So, for example, you might have that particular HCM person that is ambivalent, but then you might have someone in finance that's going to be using the tools all the time. So, what's the difference between the as is and the to be that's going to benefit that user? And again, and I say it's about the the core facet of change is a really good, solid change impact assessment, because that should drive out what's changing, and not just changing as an impact, which means you need to overcome or change someone's mind. Actually, there should be outputs from your change impact assessment. This is key. It's looking at the bright spots, is the benefits, and that is crucial. The benefits, and making sure that those individuals or groups of users that might be resistant see those benefits, because and that's the difficult one, is getting the benefits in front of them. You could do that by trying to find someone that's trusted in the organization, that they trust, to try and communicate. Maybe someone in your change champion network, if you have one, that can actually sit down with those individuals. The key thing is clarity, getting that information to them, speaking to them, hearing their concerns and issues, and actually understanding whether you can overcome it. 9 times out of 10, you can overcome resistance by getting into the detail of how a deployment such as Workday will benefit them in the long run, and that's the key components. That'd be my my recommendation on that one.
If you are working with a tight implementation timeline, Do you have proof that investing in phase 0 will help meet the implementation timeline?
Yeah, hi, this is Michael. We actually did a survey last year, and we talked to a lot of our customers who did do phase 0 work and did some strategy, where we talked not only about the strategy map and we talked about governance, we also did business process optimization. So we looked at their current processes and what they wanted their new system to do for them. So a lot of that conversations, these workshops were helped to gather information, and we do that somewhat in our sales cycles as well. But this gets the right people in the room before we get into filling out the workbooks and getting all the data we need to begin our design session. So in some of these surveys that we did with some of our folks who had who did do a phase 0, and then we talked to folks who we pitched phase 0 to them, and then later we came back to them in this same survey. You didn't want phase 0, or because of your type deadline, you didn't do it. Do you wish you had done some of this key decision planning and thinking, and getting everybody in the right direction up front? And by and large, and I think we have this information we could send out to you, those that didn't do it felt that they were constantly rethinking things or questioning what they had decided earlier. So they ended either delaying the project. So you have a tight go live, which is what your key point is. We're doing this in 26 weeks. We're going to just go forward. That's a lot of energy and things being decided, and hopefully in production you can make those, you can catch your breath and look at some of the things that you put on the back burner. But I think by doing a phase 0, and like I said, it can be anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks, and sometimes you've done them where they're longer for about 6 to 8 weeks. Just depends on what your appetite and your timeline can afford. So I think it's very beneficial, because without having those key things up front, getting clarity on where you're headed, people just get in that rhythm. Let's fill out the workbook, let's go to testing, and they do all these things, and they're really not sure how to communicate to their external stakeholders why they're doing this. We're just replacing systems. Okay, I get it. We'll be able to make payments to a vendor. We can do that on our old systems. That's not compelling enough. Hopefully we're looking for efficiencies and changing the way we approach and consume information. So I think it's a good opportunity, and we can work with you trying to figure out what the right balance is. We have done them sometimes. It's more challenging that way. Where we start the project, and for the first couple of weeks, we have bring in some of the key decision makers and do some of this phase 0 work where we figure it all out as best we can, because you're already paying for this subscription. You want to get this thing as operational as fast as you can. I get that, but we have found that you're not really maximizing the return on investment. Sure, you've got your system, you're operational, your users are using it, but are they using it correctly? Do they understand to use it? Are they still using spreadsheets and going around the system because they haven't been brought on board? So I think adoption is key, and also maximizing the investment is important. So if you went live because of a tight deadline, figure out what things in Workday you're not fully embracing, which you can do post go live. I'm not saying it's not all lost, but I think thinking that up front will help you get clear direction and bring ownership and adoption much more quickly than not having these conversations.
What advice would you have for an organization who has implemented Workday and users are complaining about doing things like having to submit vacation, sick time, expense reports on Workday, complaining that work is being offloaded to them from HR and Fins? They are forgetting that they did this before, but on paper and not electronically. We are struggling with this with a highly resistant group.
This is Dina. I can take that one. See, that's a very common theme that we get from a lot of customers. And as you said, it is really about, first of all, conveying that message to these users that they were actually always responsible for inputting this data, but just in a different way. So that could have been maybe via an email to HR or a telephone call to a finance team or their manager. So it's just the fact now that they're doing it. And one of the benefits straight away is that it will ensure data accuracy. If someone's inputting a personal address change, who knows their address better than themselves? So they're inputting that information. So it's just, first of all, maybe communicate some of the benefits of that, why it's better that they're doing it. And again, there could be a number of issues for it. Maybe, the user could potentially require more training. So it's just about letting the user know that whether it's a communication or a user guide or a training session, to let them know that there's going to be the support for them to do it, really pushing the what's in it for me benefits to them, and just really explaining that it essentially makes their life easier. They're not having to rely on someone else to input something on their behalf, and they can do it on their own. And this is where tools such as Adopt really do come in, and can provide the user with some guidance on how to actually complete the task as they're actually doing it in the system. So again, that can help with adoption and help the user through completing a task like that.
Hey, Dina, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in. Yeah, when I've done training, I've had people actually literally come with a sheet of paper telling me it took me 45 clicks and this many words to type into this transaction. I just did the same thing in yours and it took 105. They're making that sort of analysis. Is this really faster? In some instances, yes, some instances, no. For paper-based, oftentimes things get lost and set on people's desks, and your approvals and your expense report or whatever is being routed around in the old-fashioned way. It could get lost in Workday. It's still there. You can trace it. You can be rerouted to somebody else. So there's that. You have that insight on where the transaction is going. And also, one of the points that Dave mentioned was shrinking the change. I'm not stealing his thunder if he was going to chime in on that. There's a lot happening. You're putting in a accounts payable system. You're paying vendors. You're doing expense reports. You're doing time requests. You're doing all kinds of things, benefits. There's probably, when you look at the training needs assessment, you'll see there's like 45 things that are changing in the world of this end user. Some things can be delayed. Some things can still be done by HR. You need to make that determination. Where is the risk? This is not going to be, swallowed whole by our organizations. Let's do it incrementally, or do certain things the first couple of months, and then make sure our managers know how to put in a requisition for a position. We know how to do approvals, because that should be something that we can put in our training plans and get that achieved during day one. So there are ways to shrink that change and tackle the easier stuff, get people comfortable with it, and then 6 months later, if your managers are ready and you're going to do these things, roll out performance management later. So there are things I think you need to probably do that analysis. What's the culture of your organization? Where is this resistance going to happen? And how can we take smaller bites of the apple?
I think as well, just to also chime in, hope you don't mind, Mike, there, that obviously, this is the users have already gone live with Workday, and it's quite common. They're complaining and they've gone from a paper base, they've forgotten their their previous process, and being able to shed light on that in terms of time versus inputting into Workday is a big benefit. So being able to metrically approximate how long, for example, it takes to submit an expense on paper via email and all the approvals versus Workday, and it should be much shorter, and actually getting someone senior to send out communication, say, look, this is benefiting you with that information, could really help people overcome this almost the fear of using Workday. It's never that easy, and in fact, we do a lot of assessments in a kind of CVS kind of space as well that fits exactly into this kind of these kind of issues where adoption isn't as high as perhaps it could be, and the users are naturally resistant. But it can always be overcome. It just needs to be tapping into that. It's exactly what Mike and Dina were saying, and making sure that you can be able to quantify the benefit as well, a little bit more. So yeah, I think that's a real interesting question, that one.
What common success metrics does CS use for any implementation? I know you talked about it in the presentation at a very high level, and I'm looking for more examples that CS uses, and how do you come up with those metrics?
Hi, this is Michael. A lot of times we've captured, even Workday has in their usage metrics, so I would look at that. What does Workday have in there? And this is free for you. is you just have to turn it on, talk to your EM about that. What types of things is Workday going to track for you? So Workday is building, you know, a library of metrics based on usage. So not only will you get how you're performing, and you can find out how you're performing against your peers in that industry. So they'll show you that, you know, your organization is really not using mobile. We're designing this entire thing for mobile. So start encouraging people to use their phones so they can make these approvals and enter in information not tethered to their desk. There are also, I mean, I've done this, like there's a APQC is an organization that has metrics that we've looked at and captured, and we've done some analysis with our customers. You know, what are the problems that are befuddling you? If it's recruiting, you know, we have a problem here and it takes us 2 months to hire and find the candidate. We have, you know, 3 months or longer for a person at this level. So start looking at the problem areas that you're having, and just coming up with targets and things like that, and discuss this with your team. You know, we can even come in and do a discussion and a diagnostic with you throughout your organization. But those metrics are going to be your problem areas. How long does it take for something to get approved? How many steps? And many times before we used to do this type of exercise, you're going to figure this out. We built this mousetrap too crazy. It's got too many approvals. It's got too many notifications, because that's what you wanted when we were through design and we tested it and it looked fine. But then when you're going live and you're running those usage reports, you'll find out it's not as fast. What is the block? Is it going to the cost center manager and that's where the holdup is? Or the people are approving things and they don't understand what they're approving and it's being denied. So you're gonna have to spend some time in looking. You probably know your problem areas and just quantifying, you know, this takes too long. Ask your teams, you know, you can do time studies and ask people how long are things taking and what are we looking to achieve? How many recruiters do we need to handle this many types of applicants? So just come up with those numbers and then try to figure out where your efficiencies, what efficiencies you want. You may not know the number you want to achieve for, but you know this can be better. So I'd start looking at those problem areas. And we do that during our business optimization sessions. We're looking at from area to area, recruiting, accounts payable, what are the problems we're having? How many invoices are sent back, or how many credit memos do we have to do? Those are things that you can count. And then when you've changed the process and impacted the user's behaviors, you can measure that in the future to see, are we trending toward more efficiencies?
Well, we are running out of time to reply to all the questions, so we will be following up with an email within the next 24 hours, getting back to all of you. Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate your time. You will also be receiving a recording of this session via email. And if you have any further questions, feel free to submit them via the contact form on our website or by reaching out to your client partner. Have a great day.